let's get into the nitty gritty of why this matters. So here's the thing. We know that Quant is, of course, blockchain agnostic. ISO TC 307, their own particular standard, being able to orchestrate ISO 222 for the unified ledger, supposedly. We talk about the regulated liability network. We talk about the regulated settlement network. What would settle? Would we settle an XRP? Would we settle an XDC? All these key things. We've seen examples of even things like IOTA, right? Polygon, so many things. Basically any particular blockchain, and we know that Quant said if you don't see it on their list, let them know and they'll get the job done. All right, so we've been there. We've done that when it comes to the concepts of blockchain agnostic and full interoperability. All right. What about wallet agnostic? What about your MetaMask, your Coinbase wallets, you name it, everything? True interoperability on wallets, what kind of profound value would there be in regards to that? Well, the answer basically is this. It's understanding that if you have a unified ledger, well, would that involve a wallet at some point? Of course. The answer is yes. What about institutional wallets? What about the whole concept of an offline wallet? Right. Let's get into the weeds of why this matters. As we get into this, Overwallet from developers.quant.network, documents, wallets, specifically, what you see on the left, you have, for example, use cases, overview, supply chain, and even lending. But what is specifically the Overwallet? Well, the Overwallet serves as the back end for authorized. How many times do we talk about Quant authorized? It's also known as TSR, acting as an intermediary between authorized and both AWS, KMS, and Fireblocks direct custodial wallet. Did we actually say that out loud? Fireblocks? Let me tell you guys something. This doesn't get mentioned enough. For me personally, anything Fireblocks related, that's huge money. That's huge, smart money. Even if I didn't know anything about Quant or this Overwallet or XRP or any of this stuff, to see any mention about the smart money, which in my opinion is things like Fireblocks, sign me up. I want to know more about that. And I think you guys do too. Because direct custodial wallet. Remember how earlier we were talking about things about like BSV and whatnot, and we talked about AWS, KMS. Well, look at that seamless key generation, transaction signing through AWS, KMS, and Fireblocks, while ensuring that private keys remain always securely within the custody with no possibility of extraction. Overwallet provides unified APIs for wallet services, regardless, everybody, of the underlying blockchain network or custody provider. Essentially, Overwallet aims to achieve blockchain interoperability specific for transaction signing by allowing authorized to sign any transactions, native data through a single API. All right, please pay attention to this. Why is this important? For the longest time, I've been telling you guys this, these concepts. We have gone from theory to speculation to confirmation. I've mentioned this for over a year now, that the reason why QNT will stand out, in my opinion, as being the most expensive token in history is because of APIs. Shout out to people like Greg Lunt from X, other people, Tokenizer. How many times, whether it's myself and all these other guys, maybe some of you guys, have pointed out, yes, this is where the QNT token is used. Absolutely. Are we using a full QNT to sign this? Of course not. It's slivers, just like BTC, for example, there's slivers used, but in reality, think about it. It's like you're not using BTC for cross-border payments. Are you using QNT for cross-border payments? No, you're not using that for cross-border payments. You will settle in things like Ripple XRP because that would make more sense, would it not? It would make a lot more sense to settle in that compared to ERC20 token. But for a subscription-based model with those APIs, my God, that's the beauty of recognizing QNT and the mechanism of overledger. But now we enter this thing of the Overwallet. So again, from speculation to confirmation. And that's why I want to put out some highlight on this, because I think a lot of people, they just need to see it. It's in documentation. And I know some people are like, well, this is just from Quant. This is a trust me, bro. Okay, I get that. But that trust me, bro, is a standard. All right. And standards do make a huge difference moving forward. As we get further into this, you will see that, again, API interacts with either AWS, KMS, Fireblocks. It enables authorized to manage multiple keys across various DLT assets on Quant Connect efficiently. Not anything else, but on Quant Connect. That's profound. That's a big deal. Key features of Overwallet, if you're not aware of it. Overwallet was developed with inspiration from Fireblocks. Wow. Direct custodial wallet. How many times do we mention Fireblocks? Like, former founders, not former founders, former key people from Ripple left and, joined Fireblocks. If anything, end screen card, when I chop it up, you'll see that. So it's this wallet structure, the hierarchical deterministic HD BIP44 is what it's referred to. AWS KMS does not natively support HD wallets, but Overwallet, think about this, it's designed to make AWS KMS function as if it does. Holy cow. So this is truly wallet agnostic, if you will. To effectively use Overwallet, it is essential to understand the principles of BIP44 derivation path. When generating a key using Fireblocks, each asset on the mainnet has a unique derivation path. Now, this gets nerdy. I get that. But does it mention anything more in layman's terms that we can understand? The answer is yes. The first value path is the constant M representing the master key. So just remember this little area is the master key. All private keys are derived from the single master key. To put simply, it's comparable to the seed phrase when setting up MetaMask on your local machine, where all private keys are derived from that seed phrase. MetaMask is an example of HD wallet. Oh my goodness. So when we talk about, for example, whether it's BSV doing their whole thing of what they're doing when it comes to seed recovery, or whether it's, Hedera, Ripple, Algorand, some of the other key players, Bank Social, and so on, when it comes to the whole idea of what? The direct alliance. Okay, awesome. But what about from the institutional side of that? Holy cow. So when we talk about programmable money, and we talk about the whole idea of Quant being, the foundation for digital finance. Well, if you're talking about wholesale CBDCs, which they're clearly involved in, whether it's the BIS, Bank of England, so on and so forth, or apparently in the future, even digital dollar, people are saying that's not going to happen. Hey, give it time. I think it's going to, not saying I'm rooting for it, but I'm not going to, be on the sidelines when this all happens. Again, these API calls to make it all interoperable, right? Well, what about a wallet for that? Right, institutional wallet was connected to. So now we start to see how this plays out. And without getting too far off into the sidetracked, I should say, I want you guys to see this because, again, MetaMask, right? MetaMask is an example of an HD wallet. So it talks about, for example, how the values come in again, but again, the numbers match up, with these particular blockchains, whether it's Ethereum, Polygon, XDC, Ripple XRP, Solana, even Algorand. But you see how it comes all together. You see how, Quant can have multiple assets on the main net, can efficiently be managed using, the account HD path, and Quant Connect can manage multiple assets seamlessly and effectively. All right. Remember how we talked about Quant and, like maps? Well, here's a different terminology. Mapping Quant's location to Fireblocks. Yes, this is also worth pointing out because this is not speculation anymore, everybody. Plain as day, you see that you do have a legitimate thing going on with Fireblocks. Like, that in itself has to have value moving forward. You might not see it happen overnight, but that definitely will be when everything is done and built and regulations come and mandates. My God, Fireblocks, like, holy cow, right? So Fireblocks simplifies that. We understand that. But Overwallet utilizes the asset and HD account along with Quant's location. Consists of technology and network. Generate key and sign transactions with Fireblocks. Sign transactions. Remember in our examples when we went to Make? I don't know if you guys remember this. So you go to make.com, Overledger integration. I'm not going to do it because we've done it so many times. So in those examples that we shared, and maybe I'll also put an end card for you guys can see this later unless it's chopped up. But we talk about orchestration, and specifically, I think you guys do remember this. We talked about ISO TC 307 orchestration. Well, again, make.com would be that example. Then you see that it mentions like ISO. Well, ISO 222. All right. And then on the final step, what did it mention, everybody? It mentioned specifically the signing of that transaction. Okay. That was just from little projects. That was just from little things that we were trying to share in regards to the significance of, Quant and, this project, that project that's on Make. Some of those are bigger than others. Some of those are smaller than others. But the key thing is it was there. And now to see this, you can see that that's with Fireblocks. That's way, way bigger of a deal. But the point is the orchestration to see how it's signed. And if it's signed, that means QNT will be used as a subscription-based model. Little slivers of QNT. All right. Last we checked, shout out to our brother, Mine Crypto, Sebastian, and so on. What did they point out recently? How about even Tokenizer? What did he point out recently? They all three mentioned specifically that there's roughly a little over 200,000 QNT left on spot reserves. So when we talk about supply shock, when does that supply shock realistically happen? Does it happen on January 1st? I don't know. I'm leaning more towards a little bit towards March. But when we talk about the ISO 222 mandate, wow. And especially Fireblocks, you know darn well that Fireblocks is going to do something. So to see this with proof in regards to Fireblocks speaks absolute volumes of why aren't most people talking about this? Because again, nothing against them. They don't get into the weeds about that. And that's no knock on anybody else. But this whole narrative that's going to zero, tell that to Fireblocks. Tell that to Fireblocks. And it says plain as day. And all of this information is verifiable. Look into it. As I get further into this, I want to put out some other key things. I want to point out this was already tested. It was on multiple test nets. We've already been there. We've already done that. But what do you also see? Introducing HD accounts, AWS, Amazon Web Services, right? They already have that. Okay. And again, you get a full API documentation list of assets. Okay. Well, can we do that? Can we bring it over there? Yeah. Because if anything, this will help developers just in case they had any problems. How so? By simplifying their blockchain build with Overledger APIs. You can see how it comes all together. Absolutely. Jumping back to this, what about other algorithms supported by AWS, KMS, and Fireblocks? I'm pretty sure we see XRPL right here. I think we also see the whole thing at EVM-based blockchains. So, it doesn't say it on the list as at the moment, but, XRP and Axelar already have the whole thing with EVM, but so does things like your Quants of the world. All right. What about Hyperledger Besu? Boom. There you see that. Quant, Overledger 2.0 already solved that issue. All right. So this is all there. That's the key thing. All right. So to jump further into this, and I know this is, again, a deep dive, but that's what I do. What do you see here? Again, the whole reason why I mention the highlight of Make. What do we see? Create an HD account, but more specifically from who? You have from https://hook.eu to, think about the terminology, hooks. If you study XRP, you know about hooks. What do you see? Make.com. So make.com has Overledger integration, does it not? Boom. Boil it, mash it, stick in this too. This endpoint creates a new HD account under specified service provider. What service provider? I don't know. Maybe your Fireblocks. I don't know. Maybe your FedNow 24/7 instant payments. Interesting. Yeah, of course. Because when you get further into this, how did this all start? Where did it all start? Shout out to Gilbert Verdian. He literally says at Bank of America back in October 6, 2021. It was a report. A lot of us forgot about some of this stuff. Digital asset primer in brief, only the first inning. CBDCs, when not if. Regulation is here. Corporations aren't risking being left behind, right? Interoperability is a challenge that needs a solution. Quant obviously is that solution. But here's where it gets really interesting. In this special paper, right, you see dating back even before that, 2020. Paolo Tasca's part of it, but bottom part. Quants, let's put this on the other screen for you to see a little bit bigger. Quant's approach to the whole thing. Okay? So what is that? They propose to have the whole thing of digital currency that will allow for more efficient, transparent clearing and settlement. But look at what it says. It says that it needs to be collateralized by public funds or treasury assets. Quant's proposal at that time was for an architecture that would allow manifestations and be operated by banks or other money services, businesses operating within a framework overseen by government regulators. They argue that now is the time for action to undertake development of such a system. This was the first call to action. We all think in our heads, at least I did, right? I used to think that it was last summer. This was the original call to action. Then you saw things being built. All that time of seeing all the Overledger updates and all the key partnerships and, doing all these projects with Project Hamilton, Roslyn, so on and so forth, right? But it's all there. We argue now is the time to, develop such a system, not only because of the current crisis, but also anticipation of future crises resulting from geopolitical risk, the continued globalization of the digital economy, and the changing risk and risk, changing value, and risk that technology brings. As I take you more into this, I want you to see this. It's a little bit blurry. Again, Quant Papa's cell phone, and he always apologizes. I'm sorry it's blurry, but it's all right. As long as I can read it, you can see it. Does Quant legitimately have something going on that we're not aware of? The answer is yes. Again, back to that Fireblocks example. 2.2, mapping Quant's location to Fireblocks asset. Again, generation of the keys, the whole thing of Quant's location, consistency with technology, whether it is IPv6, but again, generating a key and signing that with Fireblocks. And again, with Quant. So we're talking institutional grade here. We see the underlying technology, whether it's Ethereum, XDC, Avalanche, the test nets, even with layer zeros. People are like, interesting, you mean layer zeros? Yeah, Polkadot, layer zero. From mainnet to testnet. And even at the bottom, just in case you didn't see that part, I'll zoom in. On the bottom part, for the XDC Apothem testnet, Overwallet, if you're not aware of this, everybody, interacts with Fireblocks using a derivation path since Fireblocks does not enable to support the XDC Apothem testnet. So, my God, we're talking about XDC. Guys, how much more incentive do you need to realize how much demand that creates even from an XDC point of view with the plug to, Fireblocks? That create that much more supply and demand for your Quant, right? Absolutely. And we understand that, all of what's going on with Quant, XDC, our 3/4 bridge. That's institutional demand. Any way you want to dice it. But when? I know, guys, I get it. A lot of you guys are impatient. Nothing against you. Some of you aren't. Some of you guys are willing to understand that, it's not getting rich in one day or overnight, but it's there. The research shows that it is there. Go verify it for yourself. I say that politely. As we get to this next part, what about from Fireblocks? What do they legitimately have from, of course, Fireblocks? Well, let's take you over here. Because when you see this, you might not even understand what Fireblocks is really about. I don't get Fireblocks, Fireblocks is nothing burger. They're not a nothing burger. Discover how thousands of companies are building on just that Fireblocks. So if thousands of companies are building on Fireblocks, and we already saw with the Overwallet how Quant plays a key factor of that, whether it's through the RLN or, what we'll settle with, whether it's XDC, XRP, and so on, it's there. So emphasis will be on treasury management. And what do you see here? You see, for example, my God, it mentions Elk Capital. Shout out to Michael Cornwell. Anyway, so I don't know if that's the same Elk. That might be Elk Finance. But UK Vault, OTC Vault, whitelisted wallet, this derivatives vault. So again, emphasis on wallets. So again, how do you say Quant without saying Quant? It doesn't need to say it on Fireblocks, but you did see it from Quant. Interesting. Holy cow. Because if you can enable self-custody with your crypto and streamline it to treasury management operations, well, you can see how that's streamlined, how that's orchestrated from things like the ISO TC 307 standard with the Overledger, the OVN. Overledger Network. As Gilbert Verdian mentioned, Overledger Network is so much bigger than just Quant. So B2C2 is the leading crypto liquidity provider that has built an institutional crypto trading platform for OTC desks, aggregators, banks, exchanges, and hedge funds. So think about this, guys. Banks. We already saw from the examples of how Quant plays a key role in this. Secure billions in customer funds with Fireblocks and PC wallets. My God. Think about that. Configures transaction governance with Fireblocks policy engine to protect funds against internal collusion, human error, external attacks, directly transfer to exchanges on the Fireblocks networks. But you have the Overwallet. So for some people, they're like, well, this is Quant's competition. That's not going to happen. Okay. Then again, can you work with the competition? The answer is yes, you can work with competition. And you're going to have an interoperable wallet agnostic solution where you literally saw in documentation that it's going to do this thing. That has to be worth a heck of a lot of money in my book. And I understand people don't want to agree with it. It's okay. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. Streamline settlement. Think about settlement operations by connecting back and middle office systems with Fireblocks API. Oh, interesting API. And automates transaction authorization workflow to eliminate manual and in-person approvals. All right, let's talk about that for a brief moment. We already studied the whole thing of the regulated settlement network, the RSN. Does that not pound it home when it comes to the whole thing of the RSN? I think the answer is yes, it pounds home the whole thing of the RSN. So there's definitely that. So let's take you over to here. Fireblocks. What do you have in that regard? You have, even on a simple Google search, this. Let's shrink it down just a tad bit so you can see it all on one screen. You have the whole concept of Fireblocks crypto platform, digital asset platform, wallet infrastructure, look at that, treasury, look at that, all on one easy to use platform, 60 plus blockchains, Fireblocks versatile infrastructure, XRPL, etc. And then the next part that you see, if you go further down, Digital Pound Foundation. And I will show you the citation in regards to the Digital Pound Foundation because there's been some updates. Fireblocks was among 14 companies chosen for, the Bank of Israel digital Shekel system. I know some of you guys don't want to hear about some of that stuff, but aims for exploration of potential blockchains for digital Shekel system, garnering widespread interest from fintech to finance communities. Again, why point this out? Because it brings us to this. Again, the whole thing, a Quant DLT asset stored in Fireblocks custody of that generated key. Again, we already talked about this, but just in case it went right past your head. Overwallet utilizes this asset ID and HD account ID along with Quant's location. That's utility in motion. That's institutional grade utility put in motion. All right. What about the whole thing, obviously, about Digital Pound Foundation? It's been a while. Right? Of course, according to the Digital Pound Foundation, companies chosen for the Bank of Israel's Digital Shekel CBDC Challenge, dating back to July 24th, 2024, was that the Bank of Israel announced the initiation of Digital Shekel, and it's inspired by Project Rosalind, joint project by the Bank of England and the BIS. The challenge aims to explore potential blockchain applications for a digital Shekel system, garnering widespread interest from the fintech and finance communities, both within Israel and also internationally. This has all come together. But how so? API functionality. Okay. Is that it? No, not quite. Why is this important? Because even on a basic search, what do you have here? Remember how I mentioned Ripple and Fireblocks back in the day? Ripple and Fireblocks, everybody, are both companies that offer digital asset custody solutions. Ripple is known for XRP, as we know, and Ripple Payment Solution, while Fireblocks is a secure digital asset infrastructure company. So, do they have token support? They do. Well, what else? Well, look at this for a second. This gets, in my opinion, like really, really, really good. Because dating back to 2021, we knew that Ripple executive departed to join crypto platform with former SEC chairman Jay Clayton, right? We're not fans of that guy, but again, as an advisor, again, back to the whole thing of Fireblocks. So just to give you guys a heads up, I wasn't just stating that because that was a real thing back then. That's interesting. All right. What else do we have in regards to Quant? Well, Overwallet provides unified APIs for wallet services. Again, nice screenshot from Quant Papa. Let me shrink that down just a tad bit. So, unified APIs for wallet services, regardless of the underlying blockchain network. So again, that sounds like it's blockchain agnostic, or, you know, the whole thing of wallet agnostic. So it doesn't matter if it's blockchain network or custody provider. Overall, aims to achieve blockchain interoperability specific for transaction signing, again, allowing authorized to sign transactions. We didn't fully understand Quant Authorize. I think, if anything, now we do. And then here's some of the Overledger beta APIs, connectors, Hyperledger Fabric, connector, Solana, connectors, combined calls, the Overwallet, it says it right there. And do we even have XRPL? Yeah, we do. And interesting, it's called Faucet. You know, we talk about, on-demand liquidity. Some of you guys know about this. If you go to xrpl.org, what do you have here? XRP Faucets. These parallel XRP ledger test networks, because again, we just showed all these test networks with Fireblocks, right? They provide platforms for testing changes to XRP ledger software built in without using real funds. I mean, how many times you see EVM sidechains and that interoperability solution for even XRP with Axelar? These funds are intended for testing only, but it showed how it all worked. So again, different form of orchestration, but that's there even with XRP. All right, before we wrap this up, I want you guys to see just a few more things. Because when we talk about all of this, how do we see the orchestration of the institutional side of this? Well, this is from Settle, but keep in mind, on December 3rd of this month, there was a demonstration that happened. It was Settle's Ledger Swarm RLN, Regulated Liability Framework, that can bring privacy, scalability, and programmability to Drex Digital Real Project. Now, I'm not saying Drex with Quant, but this is an example of how can even things like Quant bring that orchestration. How can it bring the whole thing to the RLN? Watch this. This will give you the answers that you've been looking for. I will play the whole thing because it's worth playing the whole thing. Smash the like if you haven't done so already. Watch this. Pay attention. If you understand this, you already understand how big the future is going to be. Here we go.
In this demonstration, we will show how Settle's Ledger Swarm framework integrates with the Drex platform to provide privacy, scalability, and programmability. We will demonstrate a CDB smart contract, which will allow the issuer to issue a certificate of deposit, transfer that certificate between owners, pay a coupon, and redeem a certificate of deposit. All these operations are demonstrated across multiple private Drex ledgers, settling each transaction in an atomic wrapper. First, let's look at the architecture of Ledger Swarm. Ledger Swarm has three primary layers. The ledger layer is where balances are recorded and updated. Ledgers are a property of a legal entity, such as a bank, so Ledger Swarm allows each participant to maintain a private and separate ledger. Ledger Swarm can connect to existing core banking platforms and to DLT ledgers. In this demonstration, each participant is running its own BSU blockchain ledger on which it has deployed tokenizado contracts to represent each asset, cash or securities. We have deployed three participants, Drex Bank 1, Drex Bank 2, and Drex Central. The orchestration layer is where transactions, which span multiple ledgers, are managed. This layer synchronizes between those ledgers. Ledger Swarm allows for multiple orchestrators or settlement domains, which can be connected in a decentralized network. The orchestration layer is where settlement finality is declared. The business layer is where participants can interact in complex ways. Ledger Swarm offers a cross-ledger smart contract framework. It is this layer where we have implemented the CDB functionality in the CDB Registrar smart contract. First, let's look at the demo environment. We have three participants, Drex Bank 1, Drex Bank 2, and Drex Central. Each of these participants is running a segregated blockchain environment with their own smart contracts deployed to maintain their own token balances. You can see that Drex Bank 1 and Drex Bank 2 both have accounts at Drex Central for Brazilian real. The balances shown on the screen are a direct reflection of the balances held in the corresponding tokenizado contracts on each BSU blockchain. Let's look at Alice's balance here. And on the Drex BSU blockchain, Let's do a transfer from Alice at Drex Bank 1 to Bob at Drex Bank 2 to show you how that works. Every transaction on Ledger Swarm starts as a proposal. You will notice that the proposal contains only the originating and destination accounts. An account is identified by a domain, a participant, and an account identifier. When this proposal is put to Ledger Swarm, it will query the sending and receiving banks to discover where each of them settles the instrument being transacted. It does this recursively until it finds a common settlement destination. In this case, the settlement destination is Drex Central. Having discovered the settlement route, Ledger Swarm sends the proposal to each participant and awaits assigned authority to proceed. This is when each bank will do their fraud and sanctions checking. Only when all participants have agreed is the transaction finalized and committed to all the ledgers. To speed things up for the demo, all three banks will automatically approve transactions. Now, when we submit the transaction, you can see the proposed postings for each ledger. Drex Bank 1 will debit Alice and credit its Nostro account with Drex Central. Drex Central will debit Drex Bank 1 and credit Drex Bank 2. And finally, Drex Bank 2 will credit Bob and debit its Nostro with Drex Central. All of this is done as a single atomic transaction across the three ledgers. Now let's look at a certificate of deposit issued by Drex Bank 1. Here we can see that Drex Bank 1 has an inventory of 100,000 of a CDB, which expires on 2nd October 2026 and has a coupon of 13.25%. This balance is recorded on a tokenizado contract. From this balance, we are going to issue 1,000 to Alice, who will pay face value for that certificate. Alice will then sell 400 of her CDB holding to Bob at Drex Bank 2 and 100 to Charlie at Drex Bank 2. Each of these will be done as an atomic DVP transaction. We will then pay a coupon on the CDB and will observe how the payment to Alice, Bob, and Charlie are settled across the different ledgers. Finally, we will redeem the certificate of deposit and show how the redemption value is paid, and all of the holdings are redeemed back to the treasury account at Drex Bank 1. To do this, we will set up a Ledger Swarm CDB Registrar smart contract. This contract keeps track of where all the holdings are, executes corporate events, orchestrates transfers between holders, and manages the redemption of the certificate of deposit. To launch the contract, we give it some basic information about the certificate of deposit and point it at the tokenizado contract at Drex Bank 1. We also assign a party to be the registrar. In this case, we choose Drex Bank 1, but it could equally be a third party acting as the registrar. With all these details, we create a new instance of the registrar contract. Each CDB would be represented by its own registrar contract with functionality and parameters, which is specific to that issue. Let's look at the contract we just created. You can see that it has several functions that can be called by the registrar. The first thing we need to do is to agree to this contract. We do this by calling the register function. Nothing will work on the contract until all parties have agreed to it. Now we are able to call our first function, issue certificate. We issue 1,000 to Alice at Drex Bank 1. Let's have a look at how that is reflected in the Drex Bank 1 ledgers. You can see that Alice now holds 1,000 certificates and has paid 1,000 Brazilian real to Treasury for those certificates. The smart contract has orchestrated these two movements as an atomic transaction. Our next operation is to sell 400 to Bob at Drex Bank 2. We do that using the transfer certificate function. It takes a from into account and a price at which the certificate is sold to the new owner. Let's look at how the ledgers reflect this transaction. You can see that certificates are transferred through a Drex Bank to account that is maintained at Drex Bank 1. Then at Drex Bank 2, they are allocated to Bob's account. You can also see that Bob's payment is routed through Drex Central, following the settlement path that we previously examined. We will do one more transfer, this time to Charlie at Drex Bank 2. Looking again at the ledgers, you can see that Drex Bank 1 records the total amount held by Drex Bank 2 and Drex Bank 2 records the beneficial ownership split between Bob and Charlie. Now let's pay a coupon. Because the registrar contract is keeping track of the holders and which ledgers they are on, it can create the right set of payments from the issuer to the holders. Ledger Swarm will take care of the settlement of those payments, no matter how complex. So let's make a payment of 13.25% by calling the pay coupon function. Again, looking at the ledgers, we can see that payment to Alice is within the Drex Bank one ledger, but payment to Bob and Charlie is across Drex Central. Each payment is in proportion to the amount held by Alice, Bob, and Charlie. Finally, let's look at redemption. For this, we will call the redeem certificate function of the smart contract. And again, let's look at the ledger. We can see that the certificate face value is sent to each holder in accordance with their holding, and each holding is transferred back to the treasury account at Drex Bank 1. That completes the life cycle of the certificate of deposit, and the smart contract is complete. To summarize, we have set up 3 participants, each with their own ledger. Those ledgers record balances using the Drex tokenizado contract. Movements between those ledgers is orchestrated by Ledger Swarm, which works out the settlement route between the sender and receiver. Transactions on Ledger Swarm are in an atomic wrapper so that all ledgers remain in sync. We deployed a CDB registrar smart contract to manage the life cycle of a certificate of deposit, including issuance, transfer, coupons, and redemptions. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Great visual example. I wasn't able to share that on the X Space, so that was nice to bring to you guys. I'm going to wrap this up here shortly. I want to take you over to Citibank. It's in regards to real-time treasury evolution. This is page 1 of 8. This is a nice key finding with the research. So we know about Citi and Quant, and what you see here from the document shows with evidence. Treasury, like it says, again, from Citi, not my words, theirs. Treasury is the true unsung hero of any business. You don't have to take their word for it. Just ask any treasurer. Humility aside, chief financial officers and treasurers agree that the real value of Treasury lies in the function's ability to fund the business and manage financial risk so as to support revenue, optimization costs, manage working capital, etc., etc. But how do you improve the results? Well, I love this statement. They put an emphasis on programming interfaces and specifically API through DLT orchestration, by the way, revolutionizing treasury processes, and to be successful, pivotal for treasurers to focus on their data and digital strategy, extending their thinking beyond shoring up the basics of all of it. Full-fledged modernization. Now, just in case you're like, well, there's a lot of events that happen, Max. Like you just mentioned Citi. Gilbert Verdi, there's no way he was there. Are you sure about that? Because guess what? Boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. What do you see there? Gilbert Verdian right there at the event, front row center with Citi, talking about everything we just mentioned. And to also put just that much more icing on the cake, what do you also see from Citi perspectives? They mentioned specifically real-time treasury, which is called RTT, don't forget that key term, is the concept of adopting instant payments and real-time information delivered via APIs, as well as enabling real-time liquidity management that accelerates the velocity of existing treasury processes. We also know that APIs enable real-time liquidity management that accelerates the velocity of existing treasury processes. All right, this gets really, really good. From the screenshot on a particular document, which I don't know if it's really shared to the public, but whatever the case be, thank you to the person that provided me the screenshot. You see here, Quant, real-time tokenization. And what does it say? Again, boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. Quant RTT is powered by DLT-based smart contracts and APIs that can add programmability to fiat money through tokenization. Invented during our work on the UK's retail CBDC in Project Rosalind, this functionality executes on the shared ledger, that's what we talked about earlier, enabling the rapid creation of payment instruments and network-wide logic. And what do you see? Does Quant have anything to RTT? Yes, you do. Yes, they do. Quant RTT, Quant Programmable Payment Suite. You see how it orchestrated with the overledger layer to open banking. And to zoom in more, what do you have? You have the simplicity of it, of automated payments and savings. You have two parties. You have automated payments, corporate treasury management. You have three-party payment versus delivery. Remember how the RLN was putting emphasis on that with some of those interviews a few months ago? Do you have, escrow with it? Yes, you do. Do you have FX swaps? Yes, you do. Do you have asset management? Do you have corporate actions? Do you even have IoT? And yes, you do. Remember we were talking about ISO, IEEE, and the whole thing, ISO 27001. There's like Jasmine with that. There's IOTA with that. So all of that is also verifiable and also there. And why? Because it's the focus on the regulated liability network, distributed ledger technologies, and RTT APIs delivering a compelling advantage like it says. And to top it off, just in case you weren't aware of this, here is a video. This will be the last one to wrap it up, and then I'll give you a little visual to confirm it all. Citi's Real-Time Treasury Innovation Expo 2024. This dated back to last summer. City Services hosted first of its kind Real-Time Treasury Innovation Expo in 2024, July, at the City London headquarters. As we know, Quant in the UK, clients, fintech, partners, bringing the whole thing a real-time treasury ecosystem. Listen to this. How do you say Quant without saying Quant? Think about it. So let's actually refresh this for a second. Don't tell me I just lost this. All right, here we go. Yeah, I just need a refresh. I'm going to play this, and we'll wrap it up. Here we go.
We've hosted a real-time treasury event today. This is our Innovation Expo, and we've also hosted a client think tank.
Today we've had a broad range of industry partners and our clients come to City, talking to a lot of our clients and just priming ourselves to understand what the needs of treasurers are on a global perspective.
And it was really, really fun and exciting to see everybody come together in the same place, meet everybody. And now we have this wonderful event where we're also talking and engaging with customers and learning about their needs and their pains in a face-to-face conversation.
Given it's all about network effect, events like this helps us to connect to the people who are in the space where those participants can join and leverage the technology that we have built.
For real-time treasury to take hold, it's going to take the entire ecosystem to continue to evolve along the direction it's going.
Being able to partner with City and co-create technological innovations with them means that you can really have a positive impact across multiple different markets, industries, and jurisdictions.
City has the best global payments infrastructure in the world, and we let them focus on what they do really well, and then we bring our superpowers to the table and complement them in a way that best serves both of our customers.
It's been a fantastic day. We've had great, really rich insights from our clients, from our City colleagues as well, and the dialogue has been really rich, talking about what real-time treasury means for our clients and what the future of treasury looks like.
It's been exactly what we wanted it to be, where we had our clients giving us a tremendous amount of input, exchanging ideas with themselves and with us.
Okay, glad to share that with you guys. Here's the last final one, and here's the emphasis. So earlier, I shared that particular video clip of Ledger Swarm. You saw a blank area, or that area where some people say, well, yeah, that's Ledger Swarm. Okay, I hear you. But I want you to see this, because if that area was left blank, now watch this. In this screenshot, shout out to Quant Papa for it. I'm going to blow it up a little bit more, because we talk about orchestration layers and all those key things. You see right here, once again, boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. Orchestration, state, and reference data. Boom, Quant. Quant RTT, open banking interface. RCBDC API client. Real-time gross settlement API client. And how it's all orchestrated. A little bit blurry, but nonetheless, you see it plain as day. So as the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%, but if anything, I'm still fully convinced that QNT will be the most expensive token in history. For one, blockchain agnostic, and now this whole thing of wallet agnostic, the connections to Fireblocks, where does it end? Is it just going to be only Fireblocks? I think the answer is no. I think they got so much more to it than just that. Obviously, this concept of the Finternet that we covered earlier, you want to take a look into that particular video as well once it gets chopped up. But my key thing is this, just recognizing all this. So simply do me a favor, if you listen to the entire outline and type in this keyword into the comments, and that is LS. as in Ledger Swarm, and I'll know that you listened to the entire outline. I really appreciate you guys listening to these outlines. If anything, I'm always rooting for you, praying for you guys, and I really mean that.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. It's just a few taps. You can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.